Hello, world. Welcome to another fantastic no-brainer, the greatest show on earth with your host, Big Daddy Zach, the GOAT, and my illustrious co-hostess with the mostest, who doesn't like to be called the sidekick because he ain't a chick. D-Rex, in effect.
That you know of.
Well, you're right. I'm
hiding behind a camera.
I have not checked the equipment. Dude, I've met you in person. What are you talking about?
That's true.
we were in your office.
That's true.
You have been in girl. You would be an ugly girl.
You've been all up in my office.
Wow. With my wife.
Yep.
We left our mark. We marked our territory.
Oh, that's bad.
I know.
You're nasty.
So listen, we've got a fantastic guest tonight. Let me tell you about our guest. This guy I've known for 40 years. I met him in 1987 when I was a senior in high school. He was a sophomore. We literally both had hair, full heads of long hair. Now we are both chrome domes.
That's true.
And we stay in touch all the time. Dominic had a phenomenal career in law enforcement, 24 years. And he's a borough boy. He's one of my brothers. He's a brother from another mother. There's secrets that will not come out tonight because we take them to the grave. But we're going to talk about, well, first of all, welcome, Dominic. Dominic, hold on, let me say it. Dominic Giovanni Antonio Albanese.
That's true. That's true. I appreciate you marking down all of my Catholic Italian middle names that were given to me at birth. My birth certificate's about 13 inches wide, just to fit them all.
And do Italian people are they like Hispanic people where they have like 6 middle names? Like you can't just be Dominic A. It's Dominic Alfredo Michael A.
Luigi
Johnson Jones.
And then you go to family reunions and everybody's got the same name, so they have to give you a nickname anyway. So it's all irrelevant,
Question for you: Are you a junior? Is your dad?
I'm a second, technically. Well, so I guess technically I'm supposed to be a junior, but they didn't want me called junior, so they put me as a second. Yeah, because my father would be the first.
Right. Okay. And then you got your brother Rick, who's just Rick. There's no 17 names.
That's true, but he does have an Italian middle name, Clemente.
Does he?
Mm-hmm.
Man, all these years I never knew that. I always thought it was like John or something. Yeah, Richard John or
whatever. RCA, like the old TVs.
That's right. Yeah, and I guess your parents ran out of money. They didn't have enough money for extra names.
Well, we got an extra one when we did confirmation, but I Americanized that because I didn't want another conflicting Italian name that I'd have to use.
So, we met back in high school, like I said, when we were both a bunch of long-haired metalheads.
True.
Dominic was a sincere influence on my musical choices as I grew up. We saw many shows together in New York City that allegedly were there. I don't know.
Strong Wayne's World vibes right now.
100.
Wayne and Garth. You are Wayne.
We weren't dumb stoners. We were just dumb drunks. And then Dominic had a 29-year career with the sheriff's department up in Jersey. He followed in my footsteps. And then
you were my mentor.
Yeah, is that what it was? And then I left and went far, far away. And then Dominic retired. You were what was your rank when you retired?
Well, just prior to retiring, I was a detective. I came out of the detective bureau. I went into admin for a little while. They were doing promotions, so I kind of took over the admin division, and kind of really decided it wasn't for me. So I decided to pull the plug and get out.
That's awesome. And then you left, and one of the reasons, I mean, other than the fact that like I said, you're my brother from another mother. Did you start the company that you run now, or you and your friends started it?
No, so three of my friends started it. We're all veteran. It's veteran owned and operated. So all three are veterans. They were all deployed together, and that's how they kind of knew each other. Two of the owners are from the Marine Corps. One is Army, and
let me guess, is that the chubby guy?
The what guy?
The chubby guy who does all the funny videos?
No, he's Marine Corps.
Okay.
That's Joey. We call him the Smoking Panda. He's fun. He's fun to be around. It's he's a jokester. Like nothing serious. You know,
Now,
he's all business, but when you're with him, it's a good time. Guaranteed to be a lot of laughs.
so what Dominic does, and we're going to get into depth, obviously, of that. They run a mobile cigar lounge, and the pictures I've seen of the Airstream that thing looks phenomenal. It's beautiful. I mean, that's like nicer than some of the cigar bars I've been to. And but back to the good old days. We worked together in high school at a gas station. Our first jobs. Was that your first job?
No, actually. Well, I mean, my first job in Hillsborough. No, my first job in Hillsborough would have been Kmart when I was legally allowed to work. Prior to that, I was already working, but I didn't know moving to Hillsborough that you needed working papers. So
Yep.
My first job was Kmart, but then I went to mobile after that.
Well, I mean, my first job was landscaping, with my dad, and then I worked with Matt and Joey, and we landscaped. That was all under the books. Obviously, I didn't say that out loud. No. And then when I was 14, we got our working paper, and I went and got a job at Mobile. You weren't quite there yet because you were still a little younger than me. And I worked with like Al Bauer, and he was a K9 unit with you guys, right?
He was, yeah. He retired a short time after me. Okay. It's funny. I didn't even know Al in high school. And
he graduated before you came in. He was a year older than me.
Okay, because he came into the sheriff's office. Well, it was a department back then. Then they changed it to an office for whatever reason. But yeah, Al and we were talking one day, and I didn't even realize he was a Hillsborough High School graduate.
Oh yeah. Me and Al he might have been class of 85, to be honest with you. He might have been 2 years older. Anyway, it was him, and there was these two brothers, the Skoda brothers, and there was a couple others, and we all worked at Mobile. And that's when the life of debauchery started. I mean, the things we did at Mobile, oh my gosh.
Things we got away with.
100. I mean,
and I was a station assistant manager at one point. I got promoted to that. And, when you're a 17-year-old kid, there's no way you're going to control other, influential friends that have their own agenda, and being a boss of people that were twice my age sometimes, that really makes it hard. I had zero management skills.
We had a good crew, a bunch of long hairs just listening to heavy metal and getting drunk, pumping gas.
Yeah, it was a good time.
We were all of legal drinking age, right? Yeah.
Sure, of course we were.
Yeah, sure. We used to have, like, literally, there was nights we'd have a party at this gas station. You couldn't even pull in to get gas. The whole parking lot was packed. There was a keg in the bathroom. We had a bathroom you had to have a key for to go in, and it was ridiculous. But anyway, there was nothing better to do in Jersey. So then Dom went to the sheriff's department, and then you started the cigar bar or lounge. And but what got you really into cigars? Like you're like a certified roller, right?
Yeah. So I was into cigars many years ago. I mean, being young, and I worked at a pizzeria when I was very young. So it was the typical stereotypical old guys hanging out in the back, sitting on lawn chairs, smoking cigars. So that was kind of a big influence. Not that I smoked at that young age, but when I started getting a little bit older, even some of my friends were goofing around with some of the store-bought cigars, and we'd have a good time. But once I got a little older, and especially in law enforcement, a lot of guys smoked cigars. So I started smoking cigars a little bit more frequently. Started out first at, you go to weddings or you get together, and you could smoke in bars back then, so we could, you sit in a bar and you could smoke a cigar with your friends, or we didn't really smoke too much in the patrol cars. I think we were all kind of like afraid of getting jammed up back then, Mm-hmm. But I was always like really into cigars. And then I kind of got into rolling cigars at home on my own, like probably about 10 years ago, just kind of as a hobby, like just as, hey, this is cool to just try and have fun with. And and that was when, like, YouTube videos became really easy to learn the skill. And if you can keep practicing it, and then when I started with the Mobile Cigar Lounge, I had the opportunity to go from just being a tobacconist with them to being a roller. And, you know, I had the opportunity to go to Nicaragua. I've been to Tampa many times at the JC Newman factory. So I was able to kind of really polish the rolling skill, you know, because it really is, it's an artisanal process. People don't realize how hard it is to get the tobacco to the right consistency. You know, you don't want it too tight, you don't want it too loose. You know, as a cigar smoker, you know, if it's too loose and the thing just burns down, it's a waste of, you know, $15, $20, $25. And you don't want it too tight. We don't want to be sucking your brains out just to get a puff. So there's that happy medium that you got to kind of hit the sweet spot with. And it takes a while to get there, you know, because you're using your hands. You're not using any machines or anything like that. So it's a process. It's fun.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's funny you say that. I mean, I was a heavy smoker. I didn't smoke cigars when we were younger. I smoked cigarettes, and I remember the department I worked for afterwards. Like, we couldn't even carry a box of cigarettes in our pocket in our uniforms. The chief would literally walk up and flick it real hard to make sure he crushed. Oh yeah, but I remember there was a guy who worked for the sheriff's department when I was there. He was married. His wife's name, I think, was Linda. And he was an older, big guy, and he smoked cigars. He always had a stogie in his mouth. Was his name Ron?
There was a guy, he had passed away when I was working there, Ron Yeager. He was old.
He married to another officer?
No, that was Ken. You're thinking of Ken Lessing and Sheila. They were husband and wife.
Yes, he smoked cigars.
He did. Yeah, he was a big smoker.
Hanging out of his mouth, that big old stogie stump. Yeah.
Yeah, we had a couple of guys. The older school guys were, and we had a guy, remember, there was a lieutenant that smoked a pipe. He was a big time pipe smoker.
Yes. And I just, you know, I never really got into it. I always thought, you know, wow, this is, it's an old guys thing. Like, do you remember the girl I dated in high school, Diane? Her dad, he'd come home and he'd smoke a big stogie, you know, and he was a big rich guy off of he worked at the Twin Towers. He was anyway, I just thought it was just an old guys thing. And then here, well, I'm an old guy now. Derek, I'm waiting for you to say it, so I beat you to it. And
you only recently got really, really into cigars, right?
Correct.
And you are old.
Thank you.
Say correct.
Thank you.
So I mean, we're getting there. That's a good correlation. I'm proud.
He's coming of age, Derek. He's coming of age.
I have to do, usually in this entire operation, I have to do the math, but Zach was able to do it tonight.
I'm Papa
Come a long way.
Yeah. And so anyway, so I just it did never interest me, and it's become quite the phenomenon, you know, and to give you kudos, Dom, I've tried some of your rolled cigars that you did yourself, and they were fantastic. So I have actually a friend who owns a cigar company who we're going to have on the show, and he's out of the DR. Well, him and his partner or his cousin, and he like really educated me on tobacco. I did not realize the time, how long it takes to, you know, age it, and you know, and we were talking about like, oh, there's a Padron 25. I was like, does that mean it's been aged 25? He's like, no. First of all, you couldn't. 25-year-old cigar would cost you like $40,000, you know. And he goes,
and it would taste like nothing. Honestly, right. It could lose its essence, you know. I mean, at that long, there is a sweet spot where, you know, you don't want to smoke a fresh too quick of a fresh roll. You want it to sit a little bit. You want those flavors to marry into each other and to merge, so they're not competing with each other. But you also don't, you know, those guys that hoard Cuban cigars and they put them in your humidors and they go, yeah, I got this 30-year-old Cuban cigar because, you know, a buddy gave it to him or snuck it into the country. It's like, guess what? You know, it's going to lose so much of its profile, you know?
Right. Yeah. And he educated, I think he said the sweet spot's about 2 to 5 years.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there. And he goes, the problem is if it's too young, he's like, you're going to taste a lot. It tastes soapy or bitter. And, you know, so I mean, it was really interesting. I've learned a lot. And, I guess I go to a Bible study where we smoke cigars at a cigar bar. People find it hilarious. I know Derek makes fun of me because I say it every time, but he's like, no, they don't. Yes, they do.
It's true. But, I did a retreat for a Bible study. I'm not allowed to disclose who they were, but there was a Bible study, and they hired me as a hand roller up in the mountains, and they were in very, very private area in the mountains in North Carolina. And I hand rolled cigars for them. I showed them how to hand roll cigars, and they rolled their own cigars and smoked them. And we weren't allowed to take pictures or talk about it, but they had a great time.
That's awesome. That's great. So with this business now, you're like a manager now, right? You run a whole region.
So I run all of our, so we have 65, believe it or not, we have a team of 65 employees. The nice thing about our company is that because we're mobile, we don't have a brick and mortar. Everything we do is out of our main office. Everything we ship from Nicaragua directly to us, whether it be tobacco or extra cigars or any supplies like that. They come through Florida, comes through Tampa, which is a great hub for us. We use the JC Newman as our vehicle. So we kind of call ourselves powered by JC Newman, which allows us to get everything through them. Put it on their containers, get it over here. And what I do is I manage our team because we're mobile, everybody works remotely, and the members of our team are either first responders, veterans, or we call them those connected. So usually somebody that's in the company has some kind of connection to either a veteran, first responder, or something to the company. And that a nice part about that is it's like almost automatically vetting somebody. You already know who they are. We all know each other. Like everybody that's either been a first responder kind of knows each other, brings their friends in, brings family members in. And that's a nice part about it. And it gives me the opportunity to oversee our team and schedule them. So I oversee everybody in the company, and I also do like our hiring and our onboarding and all our training. So I train everybody to, work with either whiskey or coffee, or because I'm a certified whiskey ambassador, I do coffee, Cafe Cubano, or I teach people how to roll.
Awesome. Okay. And does your company, do you have to have a special license?
We do. We have a because we operate out of New Jersey. In New Jersey, we have to maintain a tobacco license, and in New Jersey, obviously, there's different tobacco licenses, right? Especially with marijuana is legalized for recreational use now, so you'd have to have a special license to work with marijuana. You have to have a special license to work with cigar tobacco and be a manufacturer of cigar tobacco and retail, and same with cigarettes. So we can only work with cigar tobacco. So we pay a tax and have a license to work with that. And sell, so you have to be what's considered a retailer and a manufacturer.
But you can go anywhere in the country.
Yeah, and we have been in the country and out of the country as well to do events and connect with people.
What's your normal event? Is it a wedding? Is it conventions?
So it's funny when the company first started, the guys really kind of started working at food truck festivals. They'd just do a pop-up, they'd sell cigars. They were almost kind of like resellers, redistributing other people's cigars. You get them for a wholesale price, and then you go and sell them, make a few bucks, and just kind of make that connection. And then we branched into becoming what was known as really kind of like a wedding cigar roller, wedding experience. So when I first started with the company in 2021, because I wasn't allowed to work around tobacco from my previous employer, which was the sheriff's office. So right. I will deny any allegations that I worked with any tobacco prior to that. It doesn't matter anyway. Everybody's gone, but
clearly meaning that he does. You love that.
Legal terms. Yep. I plead the fifth.
I had to add it.
I do plead the fifth on that. But yeah, so when I started, we were right in the middle of COVID, right? So being a mobile cigar lounge was an advantage to us, because while other companies were closing down and closing their stores, the doors, and their businesses were going out of business, we were booming. Because we could come to you. You could have a wedding in the backyard. You could have a wedding at your house. You could have a wedding at a private location that was willing to have you. We would show up at weddings where caterers were canceling, DJs would cancel, and we were there. And the party still went on, or the wedding still occurred, and we crushed it during COVID because we're cigar smokers. We weren't afraid to be outside. We weren't afraid to smoke cigars, and and our team, brought the experience to people. So that kind of kept us going, and that kept the business alive. While most businesses were struggling, we were actually growing. I was hiring more people. I actually, when I first started with the company, I started as a part-timer. I was just working weekends and nights and stuff like that, kind of just filling in to pick events. And then the company had come to me and they said, look, we need you full time. Can you come on board full time and help us hire more people and train more people and get a little bit more consistent? Because, I work for Marines and Army veterans. So these guys are regimented. Like everything is got to be a policy. There's got to be a uniformity to everything. So they brought me on because that was kind of my area of expertise, even with the sheriff's office, of doing policies and procedures. So they brought me on so everybody was on the same page. Everybody was trained the same way. Everybody did the same thing. So regardless of your experience, it could be a wedding, it could be a private event. I mean, we've done funerals, we've done repasses, we've done birth announcements. So the same experience was brought to you because everybody was on the same page. And that was the nice part about it, cross-training everybody. And that's what brought me onto the company full time. And then I came onto the management side of it.
Oh man. That's great. I mean, that's awesome. You guys did so well during COVID. That's really cool. And I mean, so, down here in the United States of free Florida, we didn't have the restrictions you guys had, so if someone had a wedding,
that was in New Jersey, right?
Yeah. New Jersey. Yep.
Jersey. That's great. So we must have had worse restrictions in Michigan, because I remember if you would try to have your hairstylist come to your house or your barber come to your house to cut your hair, I don't think this happened, but they could technically lose their license, It's like, what the hell? Like,
yeah, I mean, I knew
no problem, Camacho. What's the solution?
Yeah, and I knew friends too that did that. Like if they were hairstylists and they had a studio in their house, they were able to succeed because they were able to kind of stay under the radar because their studios where they were working were closed down. You couldn't.
I'm thinking back, and I swear we couldn't even have like weddings with more than like 20 people or something weird like that. I don't know what New Jersey was like, but I'm assuming it had to be pretty strict.
It was strict, but there was ways you had to be creative to get around it, and that's what I think helped us because people were able to count on us. We didn't cancel. There's not one event that we've ever canceled where we've said we're not coming. We've got the manpower, and we'll show up, anytime, anywhere. And I think that's what kind of made us the premier cigar experience for people. And they kind of trusted us through that, and it became a lot of word of mouth business, because when you went to a wedding and people saw that we were willing to still come and do what we needed to do for them to elevate their experience or add that little special touch for them, word got out. They'd pass the word. So we would go to first anniversaries, baby announcements, birthing, whatever it was, gender reveals, because they were happy that we were coming. There was no way that we were going to cancel. We were getting there.
Right. And here's a cool little tidbit, Derek. He gave me last time when I was from my mom's memorial, I saw Dom, and he gave me a bag of cigars, and he gave me little ones. And I said, what are the little ones? I mean, what's your style, your ring gauge? And he said, well, they were the groomsmen cigars. So they could go take a break, but they wouldn't be gone for 2 or 3 hours. They just go burn one real fast. And I thought that was really unique.
Yeah. There's kind of a lot of research we've done because, it's all trial and error with stuff. And, you take a lot of feedback from the clientele to see what works and stuff, and I love, Zach, you and we talk about it every day. We chat every day. Right. And, yeah. I'll sit and smoke a cigar for 2 hours or 3 hours, but brides, they don't want their guests disappearing for 3 hours. That's it's kind of like heartbreaking for them to see all the guys, and we're seeing a lot more women now smoking too, but they don't want to see that group of 10 guys go outside and disappear for 3 or 4 hours to smoke a cigar. So for us, we were able to develop a cigar that we knew was only going to last people about 35, 40 minutes. And that was to kind of keep our brides happy because that's mostly who we talk to on the phone. We talk to more women than we do men. even though the culture says it's a guy thing or whatever, you know, and like you said before, with older guys smoking. I mean, I remember being a kid and going into a cigar shop or a lounge, and people would look at you like, "What's this kid doing here?" You know, because it was the 50-year-old guys or the 60-year-old guys sitting around smoking cigars. And now the culture is so much different. You go in there and you could be sitting next to a 21-year-old or an 85-year-old, and everybody
Right.
gets together, and it's all one culture. You know, everybody.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who you are. You sit down next to a group of people, and next thing you know, you're all talking. You know.
Yes. 100. Now here's something funny about Dom, Derek, which you probably will enjoy. Dominic was a fitness freak. He was a competitor. Weren't you Mr. All Natural in New Jersey at one point in time?
So I was actually I was always a natural bodybuilder. But the competition that I was supposed to compete in, the two guys I was supposed to compete against for a bantamweight, because I was always a smaller guy, but I could put on muscle mass. They actually both backed out at the last minute, and the competition called me and said, "Hey, here's the thing: you're going to be a walk-on winner. If you want to go, you're a walk-on winner. But you're going to be the only guy." And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to do it. It was just kind of more a thing of pride. So I didn't. So I just kind of stayed with it, you know, and then I got into powerlifting and stuff like that to go on to a different direction. But yeah, I was kind of prided myself on being a natural bodybuilder. A friend of mine used to call me Snap, Snapple, because the bottle said all natural. So he used to nickname in the gym was Snap. And I thought that was always kind of cool, you know.
Well, let's go back to 87 when I first met Dom. You weighed maybe like 100 pounds.
121 pounds, baby.
He was a tiny little dude.
Yeah.
And, you know, and then, you know, I moved, you were getting into it before I moved away to Texas. But when I come back from Texas, you were freaking ginormous. I'm like, what the heck did you do? And then I go visit your house and you're eating half a dozen hard-boiled eggs. And, you know, I'm like, oh, here we go. All right.
Yeah, those were the good old days. I used to drink about a dozen eggs in the morning just for breakfast, just crack them into a old Polio ricotta cheese container and just slug them down in the morning. That was my morning snack, you know. Yeah,
Derek, were you that
they taste
hardcore?
terrible.
Derek, were you that hardcore when you were Mr. Fitness? Did you eat raw eggs?
I didn't eat raw eggs, but I was more hardcore in other ways. I had at one time where my wife used to go to a blogging conference at Cedar Point when that was kind of just getting going back in 2013, 14, 15. Some of my prime years in it. And by the way, I've tried plenty of stuff. Not anymore, but
Yeah, he was not Mr. All Natural.
I'm still semi, you know, now, but legally. But man, I remember I had to request microwaves for hotel rooms, Dom, and I would take cartons, not 18 counts, not 36. We go to Costco and get a 90 count of Herbrooks eggs. I bring the whole thing.
Yeah.
I'd microwave in glass Pyrex bowls, 5 or 6 eggs at a time, as much as 5, 6 times a day in a hotel room, brother.
Yep.
Maid service was not happy, okay, because it smelled like a big fart.
It did smell like
But,
a fart.
but you know what's funny is all the diets, the intermittent fasting, the straight pure broccoli, the you know, the one hardcore diet that actually made me feel good was just basically as many eggs as you can eat. You know, maybe cut a few yolks here and there just for calorie reasons, but between the nutrients, the vitamins, the complete amino chain acid, the fat cholesterol base for testosterone, the protein, all those things, the egg is the perfect bodybuilding food. And dude, I would just there were periods of months, if not a year, where my diet was nothing but eggs, except for maybe one day a week where I gave myself some carb refeed, where I would 6 days a week eat nothing but eggs, including full time work, full time school, nothing but eggs, brother.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had my moments, and I look back at it now, and I kind of look at pictures. I was like, holy shit, I was ripped. Like I didn't. It doesn't feel like it, you know, when you're in the moment, you
Yeah.
know. And now you look, and I still lift 4 or 5 times a week, but like diet wise, I enjoy food, right? So and we run.
What
And
was
all that
what
crap,
was
but
your
it's not the same, when you're young, and you're doing that, and your hormones are perfect, and you're just able to kind of eat a lot, run a lot, lift a lot, and look good.
so what was your lowest body fat content when you were doing that, both of you guys?
Probably like 5.25 for me. Like realistically, people say they're like zero. Like that's bullshit. You die. You have to have a minimum of about 3% body fat to live, just around your organs. I mean, that's just living body fat, right?
Right.
When you're natural, it's a lot harder than when you're not. When you're not natural, those guys for shows, pros will get down to as low as about 4, and that's extreme.
Yeah,
So
I could never get below 7.
if
You
you're
know,
5 or 6 natural, that's pretty insane.
yeah,
Even
I
7
always
is
teetered around
crazy.
7 or 8 was like
Yep,
my sweet spot if I was able to kind of like diet down and restrict calories and stuff. And
that's
there was
shredded.
always there was always so much theory going on. It was like
Yep.
some people would say 50 grams of carbs, and then other people would say nothing, and and it was always changing, and you just kind of like. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know that anything worked better than anything else. But like you said, eating was, and back then, I was just talking to a friend about this too the other day because we were talking about exercise and as we get older, and I said, back then you only ate for fuel. It was never enjoyment.
Right.
I don't even remember if I put salt and pepper in my eggs. When I made eggs or on a
Takes too
steak.
long. Too
Yeah.
complicated.
I,
You
I
shove
mean,
it
I
down,
loved
man.
hamburger meat and eggs were like my go-to thing. And I don't even know if I put salt and pepper on it. You just fry up 3 pounds of chopped meat and you're eating that while you're kind of moving around. And now, I'll still work out, but yeah, you eat for enjoyment now. Like I eat to enjoy food, whereas before it was just fuel. It didn't matter. In and out.
Yeah.
In and out.
I'm like I still eat eggs every day, maybe 2 or 3, right? But I'll put a little pepper jack salt, crushed Himalayan salt and crushed, peppercorns. When we're doing it, when you're eating 30 of those things a day, you don't have time for that shit. I mean, nah, dude. You just either slam them down the gullet, throw them in the microwave, hope they don't pop and make a mess, and then keep going. Like it's just too time consuming when you're doing the meal prep and stuff. Like you have to just cook large quantities of chicken, eggs, and like
Yep.
like or beef, whatever, or fish. Some people, and you just kind of go from there. But yeah, 7% is pretty shredded. Like most people don't realize this, but anytime you're under 10, you're typically pretty ripped. And when you get way lower than that, the quality of life starts to suck. Like you get under 7, and your joints, they dry up. You have no
Oh yeah.
lubrication. You just feel like shit. Like you have like dreams about carbohydrates. It's not it's mentally unhealthy, really, honestly. Like I remember dreams of Wednesday nights coming home from night school at 9:30 where I hadn't had a primary carb food. Obviously there's carbs and everything, even a half a carb in an egg. But my point is where I hadn't had probably more than 40 carbs a day for 6 days, and then my dream was a bowl of Fiber One cereal with honey oats, with honey and cinnamon and vanilla protein powder mashed together, and that was like, oh, this is so good. Like that would be like what I would dream of, like. And so I think mentally it's a difficult sport. I love the individualism that is, it's just you versus you. I love the dedication. If you can discipline yourself to do a show, man, you can discipline yourself to do so much, because beyond the physical, like I said, the mental is crazy. Like it's one of the hardest things. It
What
just
was
is. Like it drives you
I had
mental.
a
And then
guy.
like you're looking for little vices. I used to, when I was like dieting for a show, I would go for a walk at night, just a low intensity couple miles to make sure the blood sugar was down. And I'd have to have like a little black and mild cigarello. Just I didn't smoke anymore, but like I just had to have a little vice, because you have nothing to, you aren't looking forward to a beer. You aren't looking forward to a burrito. You're not looking forward to anything at all. And your head just goes mental.
Well,
I
Lorianne and
remember
I.
being the designated driver for years for my friends just because
Yeah.
I wouldn't even drink. You'd go to
Yeah.
you
Me
go to
either.
a bar and you're drinking water or an unsweetened iced tea or something just because you're afraid to ruin the balance of something, and it was.
I had a good 10, 15 year period where I wouldn't drink for 3 years. I'd have a drink on vacation, then I wouldn't have a drink again for 6. It was just so freaking rare. And now it's like, don't get me wrong, I probably have 3 drinks once every month or every other month. It ain't much, but Like there was, years where like it wasn't even a thing because there's no room for it when you're that hardcore into fitness. Your body doesn't, it's constantly healing and recovering. You don't have time to like, kind of derail it with alcohol. Like you can't even keep up with your healing as it is, and you can't even let your body swell and get yourself down like that, once you're over the age of 24. So, it's just like Arnold says it best in Pumping Iron. It just wasn't a part of our life, right? I mean, you just maybe once in a while you had a beer once every year, but it wasn't a
Well, I
part of
mean,
your life at
the
the
good
time.
thing about Dom being the designated driver, I was usually the designated drunk. So,
That's true.
There's one in every crowd.
although I have a story of someone's birthday that
Oh, that would have been a cheat day for me.
was that at Boji's dad's bar?
It was. I was working part-time there with Boji, and we were, we got invited back to do my birthday party in the private room downstairs. And
was it me, you, and Billy, or me, you, and Lakowitz?
I think Lakowitz was there. Boji was there. I don't even remember because I was blackout finished that night.
You still owe me a car wash because of
I do.
out my window.
I do.
Yeah.
The outside of the car. Outside.
Did you projectile vomit orange soda after a long night of drinking in Taco Bell?
Purple hazes.
Purple haze.
That's pretty good too.
Yeah.
That was a bad night. And then we left him on his parents' front porch to sleep because
I did. I slept on a cement stoop, and my parents.
Dom Senior would have came out and kicked us all over the front yard. So we were like, we're out.
Yeah, it was.
I grew up in my parents' front yard on my 21st birthday before I went in the house.
I slept in my parents' front. No, not my 21st birthday. It was another time, but I slept down by the mailbox one night. Yeah, and it snowed, and that was a bad night. No, my 21st birthday. Funny story, and this is why I'm talking about drinking because I'll get to something important here. We went to the Bell Mead Inn, the BMI.
The BMI.
Yep. And then we went to Billy was dating somebody, and we went to their house, and their dad found out it was my birthday, and he was making me these things called silk panties, and they were delicious. That was the problem, If it's delicious, you'll just drink, don't even realize it, and all of a sudden you get kicked in the back of the teeth, and everything's floating. And so Billy dropped me off. I made him drop me off at the end of Mountain Road at East Mountain and Mountain View. And I said, I'll walk home from here. Don't pull up my driveway. So I walked home, and I lived 4 houses down from there, and my driveway was a long drive. So it gave me enough time to probably have a cigarette and, what I thought would be sober up. Anyway, I get up, go to bed. The next morning I get up, and I'm out having breakfast, and my parents were sitting there like, hey, how was your birthday? I was like, we just hung out. We didn't do anything. My dad's like, I never knew you were into country music. I said, why? He goes, well, I don't know. About 3 o'clock in the morning, I hear someone singing at the top of their lungs, Hank Williams Jr. walking down the street. And I'm like,
that would have been Billy's influence.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Billy Wayne. Thank you very much.
He probably had it playing in the car, and all of a sudden it was in your head.
I guarantee you he did. And he was driving that big Bronco he had and whatever.
Yep.
Yeah, Billy's another one of our boys. I've actually known Billy since 6th grade. So, but the point I was getting at, listen, my drinking days were I was way out of control. And Dominic can probably attest to that. I was the guy that everybody in town was probably scared to drink with because they knew there was no chance in even competing with me. And I remember I came home, and I don't remember if it was from Florida or Texas. No, it was from Florida. And I came home to visit my mom, and I was over at your parents' house. We were in the cul-de-sac, standing out front, and Dominic looks me in the face and says, dude, you need to quit drinking. And I said, what are you talking about? I haven't had a drink. He's like, your face is huge and you're bright red from your blood pressure. He's like, you're going to die. And I attest to this day. That's one of the reasons why I quit drinking. When your boy calls you out and says, even one of your pals who you used to party with says, dude, you are out of control. I was like, all right, maybe it's time.
See that? I was even an interventionist back then, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Put that on my resume.
But here's the funny thing. Put that on the resume. I'll be you can use me as a reference. I don't remember if it was yours or Ricky's birthday, but your parents knew that we were going to go out drinking. So they said, no, we're having it in the backyard. And your pops bought us all beers, and they watched us and made sure we didn't get out of control. And because I was of age, so it didn't matter. But you guys weren't yet. It was yours or Ricky. I don't remember.
It could have been either one of them because we're close. We're both in July, right? So I don't even remember. But I remember, my parents were like that. As kids, they were always, and they kind of taught me that too. And I think I brought that to my kids, was like, for safety of the kids, like, I'd rather you partying in the backyard and I can keep an eye on you, then I know that you're out, being a hoodlum or hooligan and getting in trouble, or God forbid, even getting behind the wheel of a car. We never did that. I mean, how many times we went to parties and, there was parents there and they were responsible. They took our keys, they put them in a fishbowl and locked them away, and you weren't leaving.
We did that religiously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
cool why I don't criticize people DUIs, because between the age of 15, 16 to 22, between my friends and me riding or driving, we probably did it 300 to 500 times, even intentionally, with country booze cruising. Like, we were horrible, bro. Just absolute pieces of shit.
I was so good at drunk driving that they would let me drive drunk because I was better drunk driving than when I was sober. So, and I could get away with it. I don't know how. We knew all the cops in Hillsborough, so it really
and Hillsborough was a tough town because those cops, if you were on their radar, you were
be on their good side. If you were on their bad side, you were freaking screwed.
Yeah, I had a couple that hated that I had a muscle car, and it was you
Buick.
You were the target. I mean, you pull out of a driveway and guy would be behind you. And
what's his name? What's his name used to give me a hard time about my motorcycle. I was really good friends with Carfano and Panino, so they let me get away with I mean, there was many times Carfano would find me and Billy up at 7-Eleven and drive us home because we shouldn't have been driving, and he'd like, go pick your car up tomorrow.
Yeah.
But there was one guy, I can't remember his Moro.
There was a Moro.
Yeah, he had a hard on for us on motorcycles for some reason.
Yeah.
And he would pull us over and he's like, you guys are tearing up town. I was like, dude, I literally just left my parents' house. He's like, I'm going to get you. And you're not. First of all, you won't catch me. But he's like, but he knew where I lived, so it really didn't matter. It was kind of stupid to argue with him.
Nigga just wait for you coming home.
Yeah.
They chased me. There was a cop. He used to always follow me. And I remember our boss, Jerry, from the gas station one time. He actually lived a couple houses away from my then girlfriend, well, now wife, right? And I was going to pick her up, and he actually saw the cop, like, kind of like targeting me, following me, whatever. And Jerry kind of got out of his car and he was like, hey, look, I saw you hassling Dom for driving, and he wasn't doing anything wrong, whatever. And funny thing was, years later, when I was a cop, he was on a stop in the back roads off of Valley Road. And I just happened to be driving by, and I said, you know what, let me just stop, because he's in a bad spot, and it was kind of dark, and he was on the road all by himself. And Hillsborough didn't run too many guys on duty at night, and they weren't even allowed to kind of congregate. So I happened to actually stop, and the guy was getting a little crappy with the Hillsborough guy. And I got out of the car, backed him up, and then the guy calmed down a little bit because now there's two of us, whatever. And he, sent him on his way eventually for whatever he was, writing him for. And he turns to me and he goes, hey, I really want to thank you. And I looked at his name tag and I remembered he was the guy that used to hassle me, and I said, you don't remember me, do you? And we're at the side of the road. And I said, yeah, I used to drive around town in a 71 Buick and, loud mufflers and stuff like that. And he goes, oh my God. He goes, I used to harass the shit out of you. And I said, yeah, you did, and he apologized. And he was like, hey, look, man, it was the job. It was what they wanted us to do. And I said, yeah, I get it, man. It is what it is. But
that's funny.
Yeah, it was funny to kind of have that interaction with him. And, I've seen him many times after that, but I had to get over there, and seeing his name tag just kind of brought back memories,
Well, I will tell you, like, we grew up in it's a big town now. I wouldn't say big, maybe 100,000 people in Hillsborough.
Yeah.
But when we grew up there, it was maybe 25, 30, if that.
Yeah, it was all farmland and cornfields when I moved in there. I had culture shock when I moved there. I moved from Bergen County.
You came from the city.
Yeah, I came from the city, and you c- you could kick a stone and hit three houses, from where I came from. It wasn't row houses, but it was city blocks where, the only thing that separated was a small piece of grass or a driveway, a 1-car driveway. And, moving to Hillsborough, and my parents moved there, and everything surrounded us because my backyard was the Sourland Mountains, which your family lived up in.
Yeah.
And my whole backyard, living on a cul-de-sac, was all Sourland Mountains, and it was cornfields everywhere else, cornfields and farms.
Right.
So
And like I said, the cool thing was, so we had a field that allegedly nobody ever knew about, but they did. They busted us there. And but we would go there, and we were all very safe about it. We'd sleep out there after, everybody get hammered. They take your keys away, and you just sleep there the night in your car. Or if we were at our friend Lori's house, her parents would not let us leave. Everybody slept there.
Right.
We'd all just crash, on the pool table, under the pool table, on a chair, whatever.
wherever you can grab a spot under a desk.
And Joey's house is the same way. His mom would always make sure we didn't go out. So, and actually my parents, they didn't agree or allow us or like us drinking there, but there was many times we'd sit out on the patio and, and my mom would start cooking us food at 2:00 in the morning. And, so, I mean, that was let me tell you what, a lot of people who grew up down here or even now don't realize what the culture was like back then. I mean, it was growing up in a small town had so much value. Everybody knew who everybody was. Everybody knew who the bad kids were. Everybody stay away from this kid, or you can hang out with that kid or whatever. But I mean, it really was kind of funny because there was a town next door to us, Manville, which was like our rivals, even though we didn't play them in any sports, but they were like our rivals. And like, you didn't cross over into Manville if wearing like a Hillsborough varsity jacket. Cause if you were by yourself, you were getting jumped. That was for sure. And it wasn't like gangbangers or nothing. It was just a bunch of dudes who wanted to fight you, and a bunch of, actually Manville's full of Slavics. So it was a bunch of Polacks wanting to beat the crap out of you. And and it was just so funny. And then like there was a town, 2 towns over where the sheriff's department was, Somerville, which was like to me it was like the hood, even though Somerville was nice, but to drive through work every day we had to drive through the hood. And like Lips Lounge. If anybody's from Jersey, they got to know what Lips Lounge is.
Yeah.
You didn't go to
Somerville was really it really was different when we were kids because it had that real big city feel, even though it was a very small town, but it had that city feel.
The train station was there to go into New York.
Yeah. You had a Main Street, you had a train station, but then you had, a lot of apartments, lower income apartments that were off the side by the train tracks and stuff. So it was one of those towns we didn't really frequent it too much, because it was kind of out of our element,
And then if you look at the other way, so I don't remember what direction would be, probably south, I guess, would be Montgomery, which was the rich kid. And then you hit Princeton, Princeton's very unique because they got the big university there, and Princeton's very elite and but they had some poor sections in Princeton because remember, before I worked for the sheriff's department right in high school, I was still working for the cable company, and Princeton was an area we'd run. And then you had Franklin, which was like the hood, and then New Brunswick, which was terrible. And you just didn't go there. And then it was funny, you go through Princeton and then you're in West Windsor, which made Montgomery look poor because that was the real rich town. Like houses, like the girl I was dating in high school was from West Windsor. And I remember her first time going to her house, I'm like, I don't know if it was Diane's or Cheryl's, but either or. I was like, do you guys have a map for this place? Good Lord, it was so friggin' big. But now Hillsborough's got them same size houses. So
all McMansions everywhere.
I thought the house I grew up in was a pretty big house. I thought, my parents had my dad built that house, and it's so funny. Oh, after my mom passed, I was going through a lot of paperwork, and I think we found like the original mortgage was like $30,000 or something, ridiculous. And they had an acre of land out in the woods in this, 4-bedroom house, 2-story. And I'm thinking, my house was tiny compared to a lot of people I knew. It was just, I don't know. It was just so weird. Your concept of things because we really, I mean, to be honest with you, we really just hung out in our town until you started expanding out as you got older. You didn't realize what else was out there,
Yeah.
And I vowed, see, you dated a Hillsboro girl and married her. I mean, you've been with her since what, 8th grade. And and I vowed never to date a Hillsboro girl. I don't know why. I just saw the nonsense that went on in high school, and I was just like, I am not, fighting some dude because he looked at my girl in high school, So I always dated girls from other towns. And so I just found that interesting. But and you never had that issue, did you? I mean, everybody knew Dom and April were the couple.
Well, yeah, but I was kind of a fish out of water when I moved to Hillsboro because it was a little cliquey and it was a little preppy when I moved there. And I was a long-haired kid coming up from North Jersey. So I had the North Jersey accent, and I was the kid that would wear the work boots and the leather and stuff like that. So I was a little bit of a fish out of water when I first went to school, and you know, I actually felt a little bit, not that no one ever in Hillsborough really treated me poorly, which I will say, like, even though it was cliquey and you had, what we called our jocks group and our preppy group and like the burnout group, so to speak, you know, I, I got along with everybody. That was the cool
Right.
thing about Hillsborough, even though it was like a little bit, but me, I always felt, it's funny how you say about like Manville, I felt a little bit more comfortable with people from like Bradley Gardens in Bridgewater, Manville, Sayreville, those other towns that had they had like more of a, honestly, like a heavy metal or a rock influence of the kids that lived in town. So but I got along with everybody, which was kind of cool.
Right. And it's funny because you talk about being a fish out of water. I hung out with the jocks and the metalheads, and I was like such a weird hybrid because I'd wear like my jam shorts and my concert t-shirt and work boots, or I'd have my Vans on, and I had long hair, but yet it wasn't as long as yours. I don't think I ever had my hair as long as yours or your brothers. You guys had some hair for sure, or
We were
lack of it.
rock gods.
Yeah, you were. Now, here, funny thing about him, Derek. Here's another thing. Him and his brother are phenomenal guitarists, like some of the best I know. And growing up, I remember every day I'd go over there and be like, "Hey, come on, guys, let's go hang out." Nope, we got to practice. You guys would practice for hours,
True.
and then we'd go out at night. So that's when we.
I would say I imagine my brother's probably a little bit better than me because he was always more of a technical guy than I was. I was more of the just playing like cover songs and always I was more interested in kind of being in a band just because I wanted to go out there and kind of have fun with it. Where my brother was more or less, he wanted to hunker down and learn the theory and kind of emulate some of those other guitar gods that were coming out after I was already influenced. I was more of the Angus Young and Ace Frehley guy, whereas my brother was getting into like Steve Vai and Joe Satriani and the guys that were super technical. Whereas I just wanted to kind of jam out and be the next, Metallica guitarist. And
well, that's the funny thing I was just about to say. I said you were James Hetfield and he was Steve Vai. I mean that was probably the difference. Yeah. Although you were preferring Lita Ford, but
that's true. I would have preferred to be the lead guitarist for Lita Ford's band over any other band, but that's a story for another day.
Derek, did you play any instruments growing up?
Yeah, I'm sitting 10 feet away from a 1985 Black Beauty Gibson Les Paul Standard, man. Year I was born.
Nice.
Yeah, my dad played most of his life growing up, so he would always be jamming in the living room. And to me, never really interested me, but growing up, my parents made us either do music or play or something, right? And so I probably started piano at age 5 or 6. We always had to do like a recorder in elementary school, 4th grade, and then I went into saxophone by 5th grade, and I think by 12 or 13 I kind of decided I want to be cool like Dad. Like this sucks carrying around this saxophone. Like I want to like play cool shit, and that was like the mid 90s, and so it's kind of like wasn't grunge really anymore, but it was kind of like we were like Hootie and the Blowfish and Third Eye Blind and all these real catchy stuff, where rock and pop were kind of mixed, and it's like, oh, I want to play that, so he had given me one, and then probably given me 2 or 3 guitars because he's always had 8, 9, 10, not a crazy amount, but he's just every Wednesday goes to the music store, hangs with the guys, trades guitar, that kind of whatever. And, then I started playing out, and then I started playing out in high school. I started playing out at church. I started playing out with bands, everywhere, basically, like so much that like I was tired. Like I was driving all over with my amp and my pedal bag and all that kind of stuff. And, I started buying my own. Like I had a Fender Strat. I had a Fernandez with Ed used to play from U2. And, he gave me that. I had a couple others, but he gave me that Gibson Les Paul that he always had since I was little, because it was manufactured April 1985 with the serial number on the back of the head. Back when they used to do them in Kalamazoo, Michigan, which was 60 minutes from our house. And that was 6 months before I was born. So it was real special. So it was real special. Cool. I mean, first off, it's a Gibson Les Paul standard. It's all black. I mean, hell yeah, right? Secondly, it's the year I was born. Thirdly, it's back when they used to make them in the actual Gibson factory in Kalamazoo. Like it was. So I still have it. And when we moved, I got rid of a ton of equipment because I just don't really play anymore. I don't have the time. But I will never sell that guitar, even if its values 5, 6, 7, 8 grand. I would never sell it. No way. It's awesome, and it's a good guitar. It's a good guitar. So like when you do want to pull out and play, it's like, okay, this is pretty good piece of equipment to jam on. So yeah, dude, I was huge into it till about college, till I really got too much into work and school and partying. I mean, once I hit college, it was full-time work, full-time school, full-time party schedule. So didn't really leave much room for anything. I just didn't want to drive around with my gig stuff.
Dom, how many guitars do you have?
But
can't disclose the number because if my wife ever finds out, it won't allow me to sneak any more in the house. So
one of those guys.
More than one, less than 100. So I just keep the number there, and my wife will come in sometimes and she'll say, "I've never seen that green guitar sitting on the wall," and oh yeah, that was downstairs, and I had that in the studio in the house, and I brought it into the man cave, and I'm cycling them in and out, so it keeps her on the need to know basis.
Are you more rhythm or lead? What's your natural ability better at?
I lead, but I'm more of a, I was more always influenced by like that bluesy style of lead because, like I said, being young, and getting influenced by Kiss and AC/DC, and then some of the heavy metal bands that were coming out. Those guys all just played like that bluesy heavy metal-ish feel. So I kind of went down that realm,
right? Like you like riffs, like you like yeah, I got you.
I like see, and that was, I think, what kind of always separated me is like I like guitar solos that you can kind of hum to, or you can kind of like almost like sing to the guitar solo, as opposed to, and and I love, there's certain guitarists out there that I love that can play super fast and it's super entertaining. But I always kind of liked if there was a solo that almost kind of sounded like it was copying the lyrics or singing to you during a solo period. That was kind of what I was more influenced by. And I think that's what I liked about Ace Frehley. Like, he wasn't the fastest guitarist. And the same thing with, Angus Young. Those guys played a guitar solo that you can identify. It wasn't just when you started to hear bands that were coming out later on and they were super fast guitarists and they were so talented and they were playing all these crazy arpeggios all over the guitar and they were moving up and down the neck with these major scales. But to me, it didn't leave much of an impact. I'm still entertained by it, but right. I was always more that bluesy lead type of player. And, I'm just playing the blues scale or the Aeolian scale or something like that that was more comfortable.
There are pictures of me at age 3 and 4 in my nothing but my whitey tighties, my large studio headphones, which are about the size of Zak's, with the big 1/4 inch, not the 1/8 inch jack.
Yeah.
By a stack of Dolby. One of the first stacks record players that had a record player on top, had the radio, had a CD disc play. Like, it had all the different levels, your entertainment center with the speakers, and I'm sitting there. And I would just sit there for hours and listen to my dad's records. And I grew up on Eric Clapton, Robert Cray, Stevie Ray Vaughan. To this day, Stevie Ray Vaughan is my favorite guitar player. I remember the day he died. I was at Mammoth Cave and I was very young, and I remember my dad reacting to it. Okay. So I grew up on that stuff, man. And like, I would just sit there and listen to like Eric Clapton live at Royal Albert Music Hall in London, 24 nights, man, just over and over and over. My mom just couldn't get me away from the stereo. It was crazy. I loved it, So, Yeah, man,
Now,
same here. I mean, probably just maybe an era behind. But the funny thing is, Zach, is if you look at the no-brainer YouTube video history, like when I actually go on and just watch stuff, because I don't do social media, but I'll watch videos for like an hour every day at least. Half the time, I just get lost in I'll all of a sudden I'll just be watching like a journey concert from 1981, thinking like no one in the world sings like Steve Perry,
no,
and then I'll
no,
just
yeah,
go
yeah.
keep playing more and more and more and more and more, and then I'll go back to old Creed stuff and just listen to Tremonti's solos. It's just like same thing. Like they're not the craziest, fastest, most technical thing in the world, but they're so melodic that it's just like you just picture yourself playing it, So yeah, Zach, if Dom, if you looked at our history, you would be seeing like probably a lot of similar stuff than what you would look at. Like it's just still kind of what gets me going, and probably the reason why I'm not really active in it anymore is because when I am, I get lost in it for so long that I can't function. If I pick up that guitar, it's not going down for 5 hours. And I don't have 5 hours anymore in a day. So, I mean, believe it or not, the reason why I'm not really into it is because I'm an addict.
Yeah.
Like I can't put it down. I can't.
So, this is the question I was kind of leading up to, because I'm a total music nut. I can't play anything. I mean, my mom started me out on piano. I mean, well, we did the recorder in fourth grade. Everybody played that, or the triangle, or whatever.
Mandatory recorder.
Everybody had to play it, and you do the Christmas, and then the older kids got to play the bells, and I was like, oh, I want to play the bells. But I learned, I was a drummer, and my dad hated it. But the reason behind it is because I was adopted, and allegedly my birth father was a drummer in a rock band who knocked up my mom, and that's why my dad had a disdain for drummers. And so I loved the drums. And the first time I got in trouble, he got rid of my set. I had a really nice Tama Imperial 5-star and whatever. But I played piano. I tried trumpet. I did not like it at all. I just couldn't get the Desi Gillespie, like, learn how to do that. It just didn't make sense. But when I got introduced to rock, it was like, in our house, it was a sin to listen to rock music, as Dominic can probably attest to that. And but it was just so phenomenal to me because you're right, I could sit in front of the stereo for hours and listen to just people playing, and you're just like, oh my gosh, you could feel their soul coming out, So where you grew up, Derek, was there any cool venues that you go to and see live stuff, like, close by?
Yeah, I mean, like, it was a mid-market town. Like Grand Rapids now probably is greater metro. Oh, yeah, Metro's probably 250, 300,000, and then Urban's probably 1.9. So, small mid.
So we had
Really, when I was coming up in the, I was born in 85, Dom, for reference. So, if you went back to 85, the answer would be no. It's all small, tiny little gigs or whatever. The biggest one maybe be 3,000 people. By the early mid 90s, the money people in the city, which you know who they are, the Van Andels and the DeVosses, from Amway, they started just pouring money into medical and entertainment. And so they built the Van Andel Arena, which is a mid-size arena. It's about 11, 12,000 seats. And, that was probably mid early 90s. By the late 90s, when I was 13, 14, man, hell yeah, I was at every Creed concert that came to town, Green Day, Blink 182, just everything, shit. Who's Brent Jones? He's from Florida. They play Simple Man, Barrel of a 45.
Simple Man is Leonard Skinner, but
no. Oh yeah, sorry, they do a remake of it. Shinedown.
Oh,
So like we would go to like all those shows, and then there would be like country fairs too, where they had B93 birthday bash with 100,000 people in Allegan and Ionia. So there were, but it was kind of like we had one arena, and then we had a couple 2,000 or 3,000 seat venues, and then the big outdoor festival areas. We had some decent sized fairgrounds,
right,
that would have big shows too, if that was required. So I mean, I've
We had
seen,
Allentown.
from my era, which is kind of the end of rock, I've seen everybody that you can even imagine from 95 to 2015, maybe. Just
So
everyone you could imagine.
the reason I say this is because, hindsight, looking back, I didn't realize how awesome it was where we grew up, because we had the Meadowlands, Giant Stadium, we had Philly, we had New York, So we had Madison Square Garden and the Spectrum.
Okay, well, if you're going to make a circle that big, I had the frickin' Palace of Auburn Hills. I had the Madhouse I had Chicago and Detroit. Okay, if you're going to make a 2-hour circle.
No, what I'm getting at, what I'm getting at, we had all those big venues to go to, but then Dominic introduced me to the little clubs, like in New York, we go to L'Amour's in Brooklyn. L'Amour's, and we go see Anthrax or Public Enemy or Megadeth or Slayer. Did we ever see Slayer? I don't know if we saw Slayer, but
Overkill.
Yeah, and or even funnier, we'd go to the Birch Hill.
Yeah,
to go see Dee Schneider's new band, whatever it was, Widowmaker, because your brother loved Dee Schneider. And
Ben Brother and Widowmaker. He had two different bands that he was hiding under different names with.
Right, and I think you guys were both big Twisted Sister fans.
Yeah, huge.
It's really funny because you and the Green Boys were big Kiss fans and big Twisted Sister fans.
Yeah,
and we go to like the Birch Hill to go see Dee Schneider, and like out of the audience, Sebastian Bach would jump up on stage and start singing with them, and it was so cool because we were, New York. You could walk down the street and bump into Gene Simmons or Paul Stanley or Eric Clapton or anybody who's just walking around, and it was like David Lee Roth got arrested in Central Park for buying weed, and then he became a paramedic in New York. Could you imagine having a heart attack and David Lee Roth giving you CPR?
Be doing high kicks over you.
Yeah, come alive, but Bosdy, and I mean it was just and then we had Atlantic City, which was a smaller venue. But hindsight, I moved away, and then I moved to Dallas. So Dallas had all the rock clubs too. Pantera had their own gig down there, and they brought all the metal bands in. And it was called the Bomb Factory. And then we had the big stadium. And then I moved to Orlando, and really, like, I've been blessed to live in musically cultured cities where you can actually go and see bands in small venues and large venues. Like, I went and saw David. Dominic will attest to this. I'm probably hands down the biggest David Lee Roth fan. And there's a place here in Fern Park that used to be here called the train station. It was just a little freaking dump hole in the wall. And David Lee Roth just showed up and played there one night. And it was like, are you kidding me? It was so crazy. And like, I talked to my wife about stuff like this, and she'll be like, no, we'd have to go to Kansas City, or we'd have to go to, because she grew up in Iowa.
Yeah.
I'm like, are they going to rock out in the cornfield? But so did you ever go to the Allentown Fairgrounds, Dom?
Did I? Not till I was older. I did go a couple of times. I went to some smaller venues in Pennsylvania, but I never went to the fairgrounds until I was older, and they were doing bigger, like, festival type stuff, like Derek was just saying, where you get, maybe it was a bunch of bands playing throughout the day or throughout the weekend or something like that. But I never went per se for, like, there was stadium tours or stadium concerts you went to with us, or you went to see the local bands at the smaller venues, which I always thought was more intimate. I mean, you still couldn't beat seeing the bigger. What's that?
The Denellen Theater.
Yeah, the Denellen Theater. I mean, and like you said before, like going into Sayreville. I mean, how many clubs were in Sayreville on Route 35 and Route 9, and you could go and you'd hang out with the bands. I mean, I remember being a kid going to see Testament in Pennsylvania, and I dragged, at the time, one of the bassist in my band. He was from Sayreville, and we decided to go see Testament in Pennsylvania. And they weren't huge at the time, but they were up and coming, and they were a Bay Area band, and they were following in the footsteps of Slayer and Exodus and stuff like that. And I remember being online to wait to get into the venue, and I see these 3 guys walking down, and they just look like rock stars. I mean, we all dressed like it, but you see these 3 guys, and I looked at the guy I was with, and I said to him, I said, holy cow. I said, here comes the guys from Testament, and they're just walking around, hanging out with us. No security. They're just walking around, and they're talking to people, and, they probably went down and grabbed a sandwich or a slice of pizza or something, and I looked over and I go, hey, what's up, guys? And they just stopped, and they were just chatting with us. And it's not like today where, a lot of these guys are just untouchable. You can't even get to them. But it was just so cool at those smaller clubs, because you can kind of get to know some of the band guys, and you'd see them at different clubs. And it was more intimate. You almost felt like you were like friends with them almost,
Right. you know, the hindsight, we went to the Trenton War Memorial, and it was one of my first metal shows. Me and my cousin Jimmy, and Jack Roberts, Steve Hull, Dave Hull, you know, all that whole Scott Wilson, that whole crew, and we went to go see Striper,
Yeah.
and I think Loudness opened up for him or somebody. I don't remember who it was, and I know I wasn't old enough to drive because my parents had to take me and my cousin, so it's probably like 83, somewhere around there. And so we're waiting for my parents to pick us up. We're standing around back waiting by the parking lot where they're going to meet us. And Striper walks out to go to their bus, and they stop and just hang out and talk to us like just regular, you know, Dutch Joes. You know, that's not going to happen nowadays. Kids are they're not going to be anywhere and get to see that, you know, or you know, I'm up down the Jersey Shore running into Tico Torres, and you know, he took me to a party, and a couple of the other boys for, you know, Bon Jovi were there. I saw John. I didn't really meet him. He was too cool. That's, you know, hey kid ego. But you know, I didn't like hang out with John, but I met Tico, and Tico was really cool. But here's the funny thing: Tico was a little bit like a lot older than me. Like I didn't realize like Bon Jovi's like I think 60 or 61. Like when you're a teenager, they're like in their 20s. They're like old people, you know. They're a lot older.
Yeah.
Now, man, they're only like 4 years older than me. So whatever, 3 years, whatever it was. And it was just it was cool. I mean, you know, they were playing at some. This is before Slippery When Wet, so it was I guess the Bon Jovi album or whatever their first album was. And they were playing at one of the Seaside Heights, one of the bars down there. They were playing, but you know, John knew he was going to be something big, so he already had, you know, the big swollen head. But the rest of the band was just like a bunch of regular dudes, you know. And it was I didn't meet Richie. I don't think Richie was there, but
I think Bon Jovi was kind of the start of where musicians kind of separated themselves, where they all of a sudden became like this, you know, like you looked at them as like today where they're untouchable, you know, because Bon Jovi wasn't the kind of guy that would walk down the beach and say hello, where guys like from Sayreville, Skid Row, you could be walking down the beach and you would see the guys from Skid Row and they were cool and they would stop and talk to you. Whereas Bon Jovi started to get that entourage where it was like, don't touch me, don't come near me.
right.
You know, they were starting to separate themselves from the fans, I think, you know.
So I actually became friends with a guy, and we get to talk, and we're hanging out. It was at a bar, you know, we were down the shore, and we were hanging out, and I said, so what do you do? He's like, oh, I'm in the entertainment industry. And anyway, it was Dave Snake Sambo from Skid Row, right?
Yeah.
And so later on, as you know, when I moved to Texas, I used to tour with bands, and I did all that stuff. Anyway, they come play, and they're playing at the Bomb Factory. And to this day, it was one of the bloodiest concerts ever. There were so many fights; it was out of control. I don't understand. I did a Slayer Biohazard show there, and that was nothing compared to this show. And so Snake's getting off the bus, and I was like, "Hey, Dave," and he was just like, "Zach," like he remembered me. I'm like, "How the frick do you?" He's like, "Dude, you're a Jersey boy. How would I not remember you?" You know?
Yeah.
And it was really cool. And you know, I said hi to Sebastian. His usual, you know how he is. He's just a big. And then, you know, it was so cool. Like a lot of people talk to me, you know, because of my love for music. And when I toured and worked with all these different bands, they're like, "Oh, what was it like? You know, did you get to meet everybody?" I was like, you know what, man? There are some guys who literally are as just phenomenally coolest person on the planet, and there's just some guys you just don't want to be friends with, you know. Like the lead singer from the Cult. I'll never forget to this day. He was the biggest jerk. I mean, my beloved, the person I adore, I've never met, and I don't want to meet him because they say he is the hands down the biggest douche on the planet is Dave. You know, I don't want to meet DLR. It's not going to happen. But you know, it's just so funny, and I'll never forget. I'm sitting backstage, and the reason I asked about Allentown because I thought you might have went to a Bad Company Ted Nugent concert with us, but maybe you didn't.
I would have not, because I was that kind of kid where I was like, nope, not listening to that kind of music back then. Now I enjoy it, you know, but back then I was like,
phenomenal. He's with the.
I agree, but I was that pig-headed kid of like, nope, I'm a heavy metal guy. I can only listen to heavy metal right now, you know.
And they toured together all the time, or it was what was Ted's band, not Mr. Big.
Yeah, there was a super group that he was with the guys from Night Ranger and
yeah, Yes, yes, which is a great band. But anyway,
Yeah.
I don't remember. It was him by himself, and he was opening up for probably Bad Company because they always toured together. And so we're sitting backstage, and I was assigned to Ted, and we're just sitting there talking, and he's like, he's asking me about all the other musicians, and he's like, I'm going to let you in a little secret, Zach. He's like, we all put our pants on the same way. He's like,
Yeah.
there's nobody who's better than anybody else. He's like, so when these guys come off and act all big and mighty, he's like, they haven't even paid their dues yet. They're still wet behind. You know how he talks. He's like, they're still wet
Yeah.
behind the ear punks, you know. And it was just so cool to have someone down to earth like that. And you know, he's a Michigan boy. He's one of your peeps there, Derek.
Yep, sheriff of Lake County.
Is he the sheriff now?
He was for years, which was probably about an hour north of where I grew up, where he just had a lot of land.
I did not know that. But then again,
he still is. But
I think isn't Shaq a detective or a cop down in Miami or something? And
yeah, no, but big. That's big city kind of honorable deputy, whatever it may be. He can do a ride along. But Ted Nugent was the sheriff of Lake County.
The sheriff, huh?
Yeah.
Are your sheriffs appointed or are they elected out there?
Elected down here in Florida. In Michigan, I don't know, but down here in Florida, they're elected.
Yeah, here in New Jersey, they're elected too.
Yeah, you get to vote for them. And boy, howdy, we've got some great sheriffs down here.
Yeah, this New Jersey is different. It's different now. You know,
New Jersey a blue state?
Yeah,
slightly.
You think? You think?
It's slightly. It's usually pretty.
So
it's not super,
let me ask you.
super.
Speaking of blue states, Dom. I mean, thank God you're not on the job in Minnesota right now, huh?
Yeah, right.
What a mess.
I mean, the scary thing, and I'll be honest with you, one of the reasons I got out of law enforcement, because I loved it. You know, I mean, I love the guys I worked with. I mean, the job is the job. It is what it is. It pays the bills, puts a roof over your head. But it's the people you work with, you know, that really kind of made it. Because you know, any career you go into, either the bosses or whatever can make or break, you know, how you feel about that career. And we had some really bad, you know, leaders and stuff like that. And when I look at these big cities and I hear some of the stuff that comes out of some of their mouths, it's, you know, like, why chuck other people under the bus? You know, I mean, I know they always say that, like, you know, blue is blue and there's this thin blue line, and people really don't understand. There really isn't, you know. There is among certain groups, but when you get to that other level, they don't look at you that way. And when you see leaders that are talking down about other police departments or judging other agencies, and not walking in their shoes, it's really a bad thing, you know. And like I said, I got out of it because I saw the political climate, even in Somerset County, changing, and I decided I really did not want to be a part of that. And my heart goes out to the guys and gals that I used to work with that are still there, that are dealing with it. And you know, some of them are towards the end of their career, and my son got into law enforcement, you know, because you know, you grew up around it and you see. You know, I was dad with the friends that were the cool cops, and we used to hang out, and you know, my kids saw that, and you know, my son all of a sudden decided one day, hey, I want to do that, you know, because I guess of that influence, you know. And I was the first police officer in my family. I mean, my family was, when I first came home and told my parents I got an offer to work in law enforcement, you know, my dad was like, no, go be a firefighter, go work for the post office, you know, do something else. You know, and he did come to appreciate what I did for a living, you know, but you know, my son, it's a different career for them. And I don't judge anything. I don't tell him, I don't give him any like war stories of, you know, it's going to suck or anything like that, because you know, he's coming into it with a fresh look. And I'm sure 25 years from now, when he's looking back on the career, he'll say, man, I loved it when I first started. You know, he's lucky. He works in a good agency. I've met all of the guys he works with, and he's in such a good department with a good group of guys, and they all have each other's back, which is nice. And that's what's important, you know, because I wouldn't wish upon my worst enemy to be going through what those Minnesota cops are going through right now. You know, let alone ICE. It's their own thing. You know, they're federal, and you know, they're moving from place to place. But the Minnesota cops, I feel for those guys, because the administrators are not doing them any justice.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, because they're telling them pretty much to fight ice. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're
From
put
what
in a
I
bad
saw,
place. That's a bad place to be putting guys in. And when you're taking the podium because you're doing your political shtick and you're out there saying, you know, I wouldn't do this, or I'd put cops in jail, or I would do this. That's bad because that just creates a bad environment for everybody, you know.
Well, I was gonna say it's funny you talk about your son. He's in a good department. He is, but he got his licks in a pretty rough department when his
He
first
did.
gig.
He
You know,
did.
my cousin was a sergeant there, and then I think I met his FTO or sergeant or somebody who knew him. He might have been his lieutenant. I sold him a fence, and he knew your kid. He remembered him. Yeah, that was pretty cool.
It might be the lieutenant that just retired. There's a lieutenant that just retired. I think that was the guy that. No, the other guy you talked to was already retired, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's another one that retired. Yeah, I mean, it was a good place for him to kind of get his feet wet, and you know, learn the streets and get a lot of street smarts because that's what it takes. You know, it's about all that situational awareness and you know, and especially like I said, you know, it's odd how something that can happen all the way across the country, people want to bring that to their neighborhoods, which is it's a bad thing. It's a bad thing for the career, you know. Does it make your job harder?
I think this is before you were on the job when I was at the sheriff's department when Rodney King happened.
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
And they had a meeting with us before the shift and explained to us what was going on, and I'm like, but that's in LA. And they're like, and we actually had to go. There was a big gathering at one of the schools and in Somerville, and they asked the department to back them up. And I think me and Tommy Boy, or me and Elvis might have rode over there. And I don't know why he brought me, but whatever. It's a big guy. Just throw Zach in the mix; he'll get in a fight. And we went over there, and I remember it was either a lieutenant or from the. I want to say it was either Bridgewater or Somerville. And they got over the PA and said, "Y'all better get the F out of here before we call your parents and whoop your ass." And everybody just took off running. Great. I was like, yeah, that's a little different than what's going on in LA. I don't think they would have done the same thing. But, you know, it was a bunch of kids. And you know, but like to your son's credit, he went through like literally the school of hard knocks for 3 months. It's like, so Derek, he worked for a shore town, Seaside Heights, which is a
Wildwood.
Or Wildwood. Seaside Heights would have been worse.
Yeah. Well, Wildwood's no better because you get Philadelphia and Camden and stuff coming to pop-up parties.
Yeah,
Philadelphia.
But it's for 3 months while the beach is open. You're nonstop rock. I mean, there's something always going on, whether it's drunken disturbance, drunken disorderly.
Sounds like a larger version of Coco.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. But Coco's year round because you can go to Coco.
That's true.
Jersey's only open
hood too. Yeah.
Yeah, Coco is hood.
Mm-hmm.
You can go to Jersey Shore from Memorial Day to Labor Day.
True.
That's the only time the beach is open. I mean, other than that, you pretty much might as well wear a wetsuit because it's so cold anyway. Even in July, I don't care what.
Yeah, even in July.
My mom loved the water. It would be so freaking cold. It was ridiculous. You got used to it, obviously, but I don't remember the water ever being over 68, 70 degrees.
Yeah, it was always like 62, 63. You know, that water's never warm.
No, it was terrible.
If it was warm, that just meant somebody was pissing in the water next to you because there's no way that ocean's getting warm by us, you know.
And it was so dirty. Oh, that's why I can't stand the Florida East Coast is dirty up until about Port St. Lucie, that area. Then you're starting to get into the Caribbean, clear water. But I go to the West Coast. I mean, the Gulf of America is the cleanest water, and it's so crystal clear. And the sandbar, you could walk out like a mile and it's still just waist deep, you know. And it's just, you just sit out there. It's like laying in a bathtub. And to me, that's what
you need to go to the Bahamas really bad.
I've been to the Bahamas.
You need to go again.
My daughter
sucks.
My daughter just came back from so Maxine's getting married in 2 weeks in New Orleans, and so Nolans. They went down to the Bahamas for her bachelorette party and Jana I was talking to Jana last night. She's like, I'll never go there again. She goes, it's a dump. I go, well, because you
no
stayed in
shit.
Nassau. You weren't staying in Paradise Island.
Nassau is a piece of
Ugh.
shit. It's
I mean,
a
she goes to-
Chinese real estate, Haitian migrant, illegal workforce, drug infested, crime ridden city. It wasn't like that 10 years ago, but it is now. It's a
well,
shithole.
she said the people were really, really nice. The locals were super sweet, you know.
Right, but a lot of them aren't locals anymore,
Right,
man. They swimming over from other islands and coming over and take over homes and take over businesses. So,
hey Dom, do you remember when
crazy.
Steve Hull won tickets to the Bahamas and me and him flew down for Hot Night in the Bahamas?
Yes.
And we rented scooters and anyway. But I remember going over the bridge from Paradise Island into Nassau.
Yeah.
And there's everybody just standing on the corner selling weed. I'm like, what the heck is going on? You know, I don't even know if I was 20. I had to be 21. So I was 21. But so there was a radio station in New York called Hot 97. It was the disco station, whatever you called it back then. And they were giving away Hot Night in the Bahamas, which was 5 days, 5 days, 4 nights in the Bahamas, all expense paid, the flight, everything. My friend won 2 tickets. And he goes to me, he goes, I got a really important question to ask you. I said, okay. He goes, I got 2 tickets to the Bahamas, all expense paid, airline, everything. He goes, do I take my mom, my girlfriend, or you? And I'm like, what kind of retarded question is that? And I said, first of all, why'd you take your mother? I mean, come on. I mean, I know you love your mom, but I'm not taking my mom to the Bahamas. She can go on her own. And I said, why would you bring Santa to the beach? Why are you bringing your girlfriend? I said, and who would you have the most fun with? He goes, all right, well, we're going to the Bahamas tomorrow. I said, what? So I called my boss at work and I said, hey, listen, I might not be in work. Supposedly I got tickets to the Bahamas. If it doesn't work out, I'll be there. If not, I'm going to be gone. And the guy's like, dude, go for it. You know? So I flew down to the Bahamas. I get to the Bahamas. This is how naive I was. We're going through customs and the guy's like, can I have your passport? And I'm like, passport? I was like, dude, I don't. He's like, dude, how do you leave America without a passport? I'm like, I don't have a passport. My friend won tickets. We just came down. He goes, let me see your driver's license. He looks at it. He goes, all right, next time you come, bring your passport. I was like, what the heck? Obviously, this is pre 9/11.
Different.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally different. So we stayed at what was then called Merv's Resort. It's now the Atlantis. And it was the only reason I know I was there. I've seen pictures. That's all I can say about that trip. That's another one we can't talk about.
See, now when I say Bahamas, I mean everywhere except Nassau, because Nassau is a piece of shit. But I would mean like Exuma, Eleutheria, or like shit, Staniel K. Like, just I would mean Nassau's junk, man. I mean, it's weird. The town is what it is, and then you get over to Paradise Island, and it's like, yeah, it's different. It's yachts and Atlantis, and
it's like Orlando.
But it's right. I mean, there's nothing. Like
driving from Orlando to Windermere. I mean, it's the same thing.
It's not the white sandy beach place you're going to. You know, you got to go to a little more remote than that.
Right, Dom. You ever take a cruise?
I did once, one and done.
Okay. Where'd you go?
Bermuda.
Oh, all right. Well, Bermuda's not bad.
I didn't love it. I didn't like being confined on the ship for the whole time. I mean, I think if you're the kind of like, I love other cultures, you know, I love to go to Europe, or I love to go to all these, you know, if you go to different islands, and I like to experience the food and the culture, and I'm not one for sitting on the ship and just doing the whole, you know, gorge yourself at the buffet and you know, the gambling, you know, the slot machines on the ship and stuff. It just wasn't for me. I'd rather go to Bermuda and spend 5 days in Bermuda than spend 5 days on a ship and only a day and a half or 2.5 days in Bermuda, and have to get back to the ship every day before you get locked out.
There's so many cruises you can do where you're mostly stopping every day, except for 1 or 2 days at sea. I mean, it just depends what cruise you do. Like when we did the Mediterranean, it was like 12 or 13 days and like 10 or 11 stops. Like it was not vacation, which is fine. You got to get off everywhere. But like you were off the boat at 7 a.m. and you weren't back on the boat till 5, like every single day. Like it was. But you're right. You're not going to get super immersed in the culture because you're only there for, you know, a few hours and then you're back in. So, but I mean, I agree
mean,
with you in terms of like cruising just to like hang out in the boat and get drunk. Like we've done that maybe like once, but it's just like we'll just like a 2 or 3 day, where it's just like, okay, this is just like a little mini party. But most of the time we're going to 4, 5, 6 places, and only 1 or 2 days at sea. So it most of the time we do it to get off too. It's just like you said, you're not gonna immerse as much as if you just go there and do it and do the local stuff, which is it's just a different experience.
I have to agree with you because I went on a 3-day cruise for Lorianne's parents' 50th anniversary. We went to the Bahamas, Coco Cay, and Key West. And the best part of it really was Key West. And I'm like, I live in Florida. I should just drive there and spend, time there,
You should.
I'm like,
it's awesome.
Why am I mean, the experience was cool. I went on
Plus
a ship.
you're gay.
Well, yeah, that's true.
But
but here, I don't know if you've noticed, have you seen our illustrious friend Billy Bob has been like going to Germany lately and all these other places?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Germany was fun. I just went to Germany last October for I went sort of towards the end of Oktoberfest. But I went to Germany and Austria and Slovenia, and I did Italy again. But I loved Germany. Was awesome.
You took all your kids on that trip, right?
I did. Yep.
Yeah. So Billy's daughter flies for American, I think.
United. I think she flies for United, his daughter.
United, right. You're right.
Yeah.
And they get to fly free wherever they want. So he just grabbed Tracy and they said, "Hey, we're going to Germany." And they flew over to Germany. And I mean, that's cool. My daughter flew for JetBlue and she never hooked us up. But anyway, she was mad at us at that time. So I wish she still flew. No, but you're right. Like my goal, Lorianne and I, when we retire, we want to get an RV and just go see the country. I want to be able to go stop somewhere. My buddy Daniel, who we've had on the show, and you haven't met him, but he has a big RV, and they spent, I want to say 5-6 weeks in Colorado, just touring around, just seeing the whole, just parking at different places out in the wilderness. He's like, look, you got Denver, which is, it's Denver, that's the city. But when you're out in the country, it's a whole different world, and that's what I would like to do. I'd love to just go out and just see the country. So people laugh at us because like we go to North Carolina, we drive, we're going to New Orleans, we're driving. Well, we take our dog for one. And for two, it's because I want to spend time. I don't want to get on a plane, man. As convenient as it is to fly somewhere, I just can't stand it. I'd rather just drive somewhere, and it's just okay. So we drive to North Carolina, but we stop in, South Carolina, we stop in Georgia, whatever, where we go, we just get to see the culture and everything. I just think it's so much better.
Well, so I think that all that stuff is like, it's more about define your goal of the trip, right? Is it a party? Is it a relaxation? Is it a meander and wander, or is it an experience, or a culture thing, right? And that defines kind of how you get there, what you do, where you stop, everything. Like you got to go to Europe, Zach. Like if you go to Europe to relax, right? Oh yeah, let's go to Ibiza and sit on the beach for 14 days. Okay, you can find a cheap place and fly. Okay, but like if you want to see history, you're gonna do the whole tour of Germany. You're gonna do the whole tour of you. You know what I'm saying? Like you're gonna have more of a cultural type of thing. Whereas North Carolina, you're like kind of this more like this family. Play it by ear experience. It's just a different goal.
Well, I think also my goal, if we go out of the country, we want to go to Greece. Lorianne definitely wants to go to Greece and Italy, and we'll do that someday. If I ever go on a cruise again, I did say I would. One of the cruises I saw that I think would be phenomenal, do like a 14-day cruise, the Alaskan cruise.
It is
because it stops everywhere. You do land and sea, so you're not on the ship. And I just want to look. My parents, I've been to every state except for
that's also a cruise where being on the ship is awesome because you're seeing whales and scenery. Like so again, define the purpose, right? Alaska, it's like you go to see things that are larger than life. It's not really cultural. It's not super cultural, but but in terms of like wilderness, there's not a lot of places you go in the world where you're like, holy shit, the picture can't contain this. There's places, but like Alaska's one of those. It's a scale thing. You go to see the scale.
Right. Yeah. And all right. So we're going to have to do a whole show on cruises.
We can do a whole show on travel.
Alaska, I would do as a cruise. My wife and I, we've talked about that, because that is the kind of thing you want to see it from land and sea. And I would appreciate that more than like I said, I mean, going to Bermuda, you're in the middle of the ocean for 2 days and you see nothing but blue water. There's nothing to see, you know.
Right.
Look up in the sky, you don't even see planes flying overhead. You know, it's just
when you do the Alaska from Vancouver, like let's say it's a 7 or a 10 day, almost every day you're near land or in a fjord, like, or seeing humpback whales jump, or
yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Like, it's different than, it's not a lot of open water. It is, but not not as much as like if you're going to do a large Caribbean
Right.
pass through.
So, all right, we got off track as we usually do. That's why this show is phenomenal. That's why it's called No Brainer, because we don't use our brains. But I know, Derek, you got a 7:30 usually cut off, so I got to do that. But Dom, we got to get off topic about your entrepreneurism with your business and everything. But do you have anything you need to promote about your business? Would you like, you want to give a little shout out or advertise?
Well, you know me, I always kind of stay busy, and mostly what I appreciate about, you know, with the Mobile Cigar Lounge is that it's kind of opened up different doors for me. You know, one of the things we started a nonprofit through that, for veterans and first responders. It's called Patriots of the Leaf, and really what it is it gives an outlet to veterans and first responders, an opportunity to get together with like-minded people, kind of step away from the hectic everyday life and whatever's going on, and get together with everybody and just hang out, talk, smoke cigars, and it gives us an opportunity too to support local cigar shops. You know, because New Jersey, we're getting inundated with cigar shops, which is nice. It's a nice thing, you know. So every turn of the corner, there's another cigar shop opening up, or there's somebody else getting into business. And a lot of them are either veteran owned or first responders, you know, or former first responders getting into the business. So that gives us that opportunity, which is nice. And, you know, just like you guys, we also started a little bit of a podcast, called, you know, Big Blue Stogie, Blue Stogie Review. And what we do is, we try to bring in different cigar companies or anybody that's in the industry and talk about their products and let them talk about how they got in the industry and stuff like that. So we center it around that, and we've been doing it a lot with either, again, first responders and veterans, just to kind of have that outlet to kind of come in. You know, we did a Marine Corps birthday show for the 250th anniversary of the Marine Corps, which was cool. Being that I was in Pennsylvania for your mom's memorial service, I missed that podcast, but it gave somebody else the opportunity to kind of take my seat, to be honest with you, and sit in the studio and have a bunch of great guests that were all, you know, served our country. And that's the kind of thing we like to do. And everything we do with the Mobile Cigar Lounge, we try to center it around these little outlets for veterans and first responders, because I think is kind of important, you know.
So the Mobile Cigar Lounge will go anywhere. Anybody calls, they can get a hold of you online.
Yeah, we go anywhere, you know.
Instagram.
We bring the party to you. We've been to, you know, 30 states. We've been to we've been to a US territory. We've been to Canada. You know, so it's kind of cool experience.
Excellent. So people can find you online, and your podcast is called what again?
We're the Big Blue Stogie Review on YouTube.
Okay. So you guys, that'll be one of my fellow podcasts that I promote for y'all. So that's great because my boy's on it.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, no. I want people to reach out. They can find you on Instagram because I know I follow you on Instagram. So if anybody's on my Instagram or my Facebook, they can find the Cigar Lounge, the Mobile Cigar Lounge, and see all their funny antics. You can see the smoking panda. That guy's he's hilarious. Dominic, we want to thank you very much for being a guest tonight. It's been an honor. It's been a joy going down memory lane. We could probably talk for you. Well, I know we talk hours every day. So, but my co-host likes to go running at night, so we got to let him go run with his wife.
I don't blame him. At least he's staying in shape, man. You know.
It's been a while.
Yeah,
no. Holiday break. Oh boy.
But so everybody, you can find us online. We're on all the social platforms under No Brainer Show. Other than YouTube is No Brainer Shows with an S. You can find us on all the audio platforms, Spotify, Apple. Please subscribe, like, and follow. And until next time, we've got a great show coming up next week. We're going to have a special guest in-house who is going to join us here. and we're going to talk about more business and more great no-brainer things. So until next time, we love you. We thank you. If you guys are local, holler at me. Let's go have a stogie together. And if not, let's just chat over the World Wide Web. And until next time, peace.